So, guys, this is Bob in the house. What's the topic for today? It's a fun and games. It's about busting myths. It's about throwing some light. And what are the two, three subjects that I want to do? Bust the myths and throw some light. One is US the bad guy in global politics, right? Is Trump better for India and the Middle East? Is the BJP and this PM a nationalist government? And the real story behind the economy and infrastructure. But that one I'll cover later because that takes some time. And why do I start this topic? It's because of a comment made in one of our groups from a colleague of mine, friend of mine, batchmate of mine, I'll call him the S. And what did he say? The world is in mess under the Dems. Trump will be better as far as I'm concerned for India, Middle East, etc. The Putins and Shis of the world don't respect the Dems, they respected Trump. So I'll start with one which I can rebut immediately, is the second one. Respect Trump. Putin never respected Trump, Xi never respecting Trump, and neither did that strong Kim Jong-un respect Trump. They just knew they could play to his ego. Is that what he wanted? I mean, we have somebody close by here too in our neighborhood. But is that what really you think this is all about, that they respected him? Putin respected Trump. Putin just knew he could run all over Europe, right? As long as Trump was there, he would get Ukraine back. He obviously got the other, when the first place he attacked, he got that, right? On the Black Sea, right? I forget the name. She played him, and the best one was good old Kim Jong. He played Trump like you can't believe, right? So definitely these are the myths that I want to bust. And when you go back and why bum rap and villain? Who is the real villain, and why does the US always get a bad rap? One is obviously has to do with Hollywood and the way they project their armed forces and their SEALs and their intelligence system. But at the end of the day, between USA, USSR, China, let's say that CIA, KGB, and whoever the Chinese agency is, all of these guys in their own way are bad guys. The difference is in the United States, eventually there is a comeuppance because of a democratic system that they get nailed. In case of the KGB and Chinese, you don't know. KGB, and look at it, and look at who all really started the problem, right? Let's just go back a little bit in history, right? Which I pointed out earlier. This cartography started by the colonial powers that were essentially European, which is Russia, which created USSR. You have the Spaniards that took over half of Latin America. Then you had the English and the French who divided Africa between them. And then you have the British who controlled Singapore, Malaysia, and the Dutch who had their play in Indonesia. And, can you forget these guys? Look at Sykes and Picot who divided the Middle East. That's where the real trouble started because there were no real borders. And who are the people who created problems in our area, right? It obviously had to start with Durand in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Then it had to do with Radcliffe between India, Pakistan and Bangladesh, now Bangladesh. And then McMahon, the biggest criminal of them all, right? He created the border between India and Tibet. And nobody really thought about that, right? This is where the real problem started, right? And the United States eventually earlier was an isolationist power, right? It had gotten its independence from the good old imperial power. And the United States has never been really imperial, right? It's not really been a colonial power. But the dollar may control a lot of stuff, and Hollywood and the culture, American culture, might control a lot of our minds, but it's not the kind of colonialism that the USSR did Russia did when it corralled all of USSR with it, or the Chinese, for example, who still continue to, in my opinion, be an imperial power because a lot of China doesn't belong to them anyway. It's just only the small, if you go back in history, only small Han territory, but Outer Mongolia, Tibet are really not originally Chinese, right? They may just tell you that they are, just like they tell you the South China Sea is theirs, but it's not, right? Let's just go back. Let's go back. I'm going to go back. Let's start with the First World War, 1913-21. What do I see? Can you imagine? There was something called the Progressive Party, right? But before that, let me just tell you the two major parties when they came into being, right? I didn't know that. Democratic Party was founded in 1828. And remember, a lot of the Southern Democrats, right, eventually turned Republican because they were extremely conservative, right? Then And then in 20th March 1854 in Ripon, Wisconsin, the Republican Party was formed. But somewhere along the line, Roosevelt, when he didn't become a candidate for presidency in the Democratic Party, created this progressive movement. Progressive movement actually provided the square deal. What was the square deal? The square deal essentially was taking on or breaking the connections between big businesses. This was the time of obviously also the robber barons, which is J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller Oil, J.P. Morgan Finance, Vanderbilt, I think, Rail, and Carnegie Mellon Steel, right? So it was basically creating red lines between big businesses and politics, so that that corruption would stop, right? And that's what the Progressive Party was about. And who was the president was between 1913 and 21 was Woodrow Wilson, and this is technically a public good. Their involvement in World War One, right? He sent in his troops, right? Then you come to 33-45, Great Depression, right? And who was in power? The Democrats, right? And the Democrats, who was the president here? Let's see. Teddy Roosevelt. He's responsible for all the public works and the grand network of roads and highways in the United States. And he bought basically the New Deal, which was public projects, financial reforms, regulations, and highway network. And he also another public good. You had the Nazis, right? The two trouble spots, both in First World, Second World War, not the United States. It was the Europeans at each other's throat, right? So he came in, intervened after Pearl Harbor, and when Churchill begged him to come in, and basically, essentially, it's their involvement that and the war effort that was put in by the women and the infrastructure and the industry of the United States that pulled them out of for the upside for them was it pulled them out of a recession, and the upside for the world was you got created. There was some world order, right? Then let's see, 45 to 53 is Harry S. Truman, again Democratic Party, and the Korean War 50-53. This is again got to do with colonial Japan. When they pulled out, the Chinese and the Russians were pounding, trying to take over Korea. The Americans stepped in, created this 38th parallel, and you divided Korea. That was a choice, right? Then 53-60, you had Dwight Eisenhower, and Nixon was vice president. And this is the time Republicans came to India's aid. So Republicans did a good job they gave signed the PL 480, which was the food grain deal that we had. And now between 60 to 68 were the Democrats. We had the 62 war. We had the Bay of Pigs, right? You had Kennedy's assassination, right? You had China attack India. And the United States again came to India's help at Nehru's behest, and these are the Democrats in the war. But because their focus was on the missile crisis in Cuba, China found that the opportune time to get in and kind of teach us a lesson, right? Then 68 to 76 were the Republicans. Right? There was Nixon and Ford. Nixon got caught in Watergate. You had the India-Pakistan war. And now you remember the Republicans for what they did to us. The Seventh Fleet. Does anybody forget that? Does anybody forget how Nixon treated Indira Gandhi, right? And this is also the time that US withdrew troops from Vietnam. Now, again, Vietnam is not an American problem. It was a French problem. The French had Cambodia and Vietnam as their colonies, right? When they withdrew, or when they were forced to withdraw, again, what was feared that communism eventually came. Communism was, and the Chinese and or Russians and the communism was obviously on its way, and that was the fear that wrongly forced the United States to take an action. Right? Now, 76 to 8 was Democrats, and what do you have here? Right? You have again world in crisis. Why? Because the Shah of Iran got deposed. You had a massive upheaval in Iran. The Ayatollah came in. You had the Iran hostage crisis. Anybody remembers the embassy, what happened there, right? And then 80-88, right? Ronald Reagan, gunslinging Ronald Reagan Republicans, right? He changed essentially the world as far as the global financial economy was concerned. If you see the New Deal that came out during this period, it made sure the financial economy was far greater than the real economy. It was all about taxes and tax cutting. But he did it right. I mean, whatever he did, He created the concept of offshoring actually started during his period. We were there at that time when graduating from business school, and there were no jobs, right? Then obviously, whatever he did, then he got the Gorbachev treaty going, right? But then come to a second point of good for the Middle East. And who's really caused the problems in the Middle East? Right? What you forget is in 68, 76, when the gold standard was abolished by Nixon, the coining of petrodollar came into being. So there is where, again, the Republicans, responsible essentially for what's happening in the Middle East, right? Before, of course, the problem you can lay on British soldiers is here. And 88 to 92, right, what are the good things that happened during this Republican period? The Berlin Wall came down, right? USSR withdrew from Afghanistan. USSR split, right? But coming down to that point of the responsibility of the Middle East was the first Gulf War. The first Gulf War against, you got it, against Iraq. And at this time, what happened was that you had a situation where Bush went in, right? And then you come to 1992, 92, 96, 96, 2000. Obviously, everybody remembers Clinton. Clinton was bad for India because you said that, Vajpayee did his nuclear tests and severe sanctions were put on India, right? You can remember that, right? But you also can remember the Kargil War. Kargil War happened during this period. And let me just tell you, for us, it was hardly a war, it was a defense, right? Because we had been caught with our guard down, our intelligence had completely failed, Pakistan had occupied if you travel down that road, you can see that there was no way you were getting those guys off, right? And to a large extent, when Nawaz Sharif went running to Clinton, Clinton said, force essentially gave him an ultimatum, right? And that's why we eventually did win the war. Now let's look at 2000 to 2008. This is the Bush Republicans, right? Second Gulf War started in 2003, and Tony Blair played together to create the largest lie of them all, which was the WMDs. Okay, World Trade Centers again happened under the Republicans. September 2001, start of the Afghanistan War, October 2001. This is again, you can lay it down right on the door of the Republicans. The chaos in Afghanistan, the chaos in the Middle East, the current chaos. Right? Then came 2008, 2016, Obama, Democrats. I'm not sure they did that well in international relations. Obama, while he visited India twice, may or may not have been that good, right? 2016, 2020, Trump just bullied us. We flattered him, he flattered us back, but at the end of the day, he took away the GSP from India, right? And then you come to 2020, 2024, Democrats, Joe Biden. This has been the most consequential period for India and US relationships, right? Now, before I get into why, I have this. Walkie-talkie solar equipment exploded day after pager blast. This is what happened in Lebanon. But this is fearful because this is weaponized telephones, computers, pagers. You and me, right? And look at what googly been thrown at good old Modi. Will meet Modi during his US visit next week, says Trump. Then he goes further. Fantastic Modi coming to US to meet me next week, claims Trump, right? But in the same breath, he says, India, a very big abuser of trade ties, says Trump, as he declares meet with PM. Okay, but India comes out defending, immediately comes out, Trump not on travel plan, clarifies MEA after he claims meet with the PM. Okay, not going down well, the new grammar of India-US relations. This is why I tell you why this is the most consequential relationship. This is written by Rudra Chaudhary. He says, a well-defined cognitive shift to unhesitatingly strengthen different kinds of ties shaped the way both sides dealt with each other's imperatives. The manifestation of the ideational shift were real and can be counted in investments and new industry-led arrangements alike. In January 2023, NSA on both sides inaugurated the India-US initiative on ICET. This was a new way of deepening cooperation. It requires as much from industry and academia as from different parts of both governments. An American semiconductor company was the first of at least 6 projects till date that tapped into India's incentives. Bricks and mortars are being laid to build a new outsourced assembly and testing plant in Gujarat. Why Gujarat, I wonder? 2 legacy defense agreements of co-innovation of jet engines and the purchase of armed drones were reinvigorated. Reportedly, they are close to conclusion. A chip-making facility for national security built in India is being negotiated. Export controls in the US loosened their grip. Okay, then further, defense ties are deeper than they have ever been. This is as much a function of legacy arrangements. A key supply agreement was signed last month. C-130J, C-17 P-81s, Apaches, Chinooks, and MH-60R helicopters are changing capabilities for the Indian military. The US Army has reached out to Indian defense firms to produce everything from nuts and bolts to cartridges and artillery. There are 5 sets of ever more complex bilateral military exercises that include all 3 Indian services. In some, the commitment to military and security is clear. This is what happened under the Democrats. Nothing of worth really happened under Trump. Under Bush, the nuclear agreement was signed, but do remember on this side was the Congress, right? India, and this is the other thing that the US reinvigorated to the benefit of India and to take on China. India and Quad, a tale of collaboration. Quad, however, has its own significance. It has enabled the US to explore plurilateral convergences with India beyond the strengths of the bilateral relationship. From the Indian perspective, this has catalyzed greater willingness in the US to do more with India bilaterally. Beyond the ICET, the US has now authorized technology transfer to India of GE F414 jet engines, which has been difficult earlier. Japan and Australia are also willing to do more with India bilaterally because of Quad and the enhanced US willingness. This is how the United States relationship under the Democrats and India has worked. India US to sign 2 pacts at Modi-Biden bilateral, but there is an fly in the ointment. District courts in US summons India government NSA former RAW chief over Pannu lawsuit. US concerned over export of ICET dual-use items to Russia. That's a big problem. Ahead of PM's US trip, government evasive on proposing Ukraine peace plan. Why hesitant? Because they don't have one. US-India relations under the Biden administration. He says, the Grand Tamasha, reflecting on the peace more than 1 year later. This is Tellis noted, I think there is very clear understanding in Washington of New Delhi's view that while China remains the most potent security threat facing India, India is still relatively weaker than China and India is physically too close to China for comfort. Tellis said that means that India simply does not have the luxury of entangling itself in crises that do not directly implicate or impact upon its interests. More and more Indians are willing to acknowledge that short of a direct Chinese threat to India, India is unlikely to get entangled in fights that China may have with others, Tellis remarked. Okay, that's all right. And India terms Pannu case baseless after US court summons. So like I said, when I go through all this, you can see that at the end of the day, global problems, global bad guys are on both sides. CIA, KGB, the Chinese, the worst of them all. They are actually weaponized. Their citizenries, children, etc., family who settled and now are US citizens in Canada, especially the Anglophile open countries like China, Canada, Australia, UK, and the United States. They've actually weaponized that by threatening their parents and families in China. They are worse than the KGB and CIA, but can ever be. So let me just tell you, at the end of the day, Trump is not good or not really going to be good for the Middle East or India. The Republicans about India, I think if you look at the agreements that have sorted out now, I think the Democrats have done far better, barring where it all started with the Republicans, which was the nuclear deal. But however, how can you forget the 7th Fleet, Nixon, and Republicans? So stay cheers, Briggs. Make up your own mind who the bad guys here and who is going to be more helpful to India. 3 cheers, Jai Hind.